All right, the committee will come to order. Please note those members present and that we have a quorum. Judge Fitzgerald asked me to pass on that he had a late conflict on the way over and had to be diverted, and so he will join us again at the next meeting. I think Councilman Cook is going to be running late, but she plans to join us. So.
And if I may, Mr. Chair, I just got word from Kevin Nakan, Councilman Kevin Nakan, and he will be unable to attend.
Okay, all right. Very good. Okay. We will go ahead and move on into presentations. As usual, let me remind that we welcome comments by the public, but it's our intent to reserve a future meeting for strictly public comment on this transition. So, nothing further from the members. Laurie?
Good afternoon. I do not have a pie chart for LUS Utilities or LUS Fiber. Utilities and Fiber are divisions of the City of Lafayette. They are 100% funded. They have their separate fund. It's a business-type fund. They are 100% funded by user fees, no tax money. It goes into those funds to pay any of their expenses. LUS Utilities pays the city general fund and ILOT, and that is through bond covenants in the ordinance. And LUS Fiber pays the city general fund and ILOT. Other than that, I really don't think they have anything to do with the parish.
Okay. All right. Do we have a presentation by LUS Fiber?
What it stands for.
LUS first.
LUS first.
I'm sorry, Miss Veronica's asking me to remind you what ILOT is. ILOT is a payment in lieu of tax. So it pays, since it's the city's utility division and it's government-owned, it pays the city general fund a fee.
Right. And let me remind the members that they have a little trouble with the system, so all the mics will remain hot during the meeting. So, all right. State your name for the record.
Good afternoon, everyone. Lowell Duyo, Interim Director of Lafayette Utility System. Just to let you know, I don't have a formal presentation, but prior to this meeting, Jeff Stewart, who is his official title, Engineer and Power Supply Manager, he and I got together, went over the ordinances that have happened over the past year to see if there's any way that it would affect the parish. We also met and just talked informally to see if there was any situation that could bring the parish into the decisions made by the city of Lafayette. And at this time, we couldn't come up with any of them. But I did bring Jeff here. If you have any specific questions related to Lafayette Utility System, he's in better shape to answer those than I am.
Okay. Let me ask you, Laura, what's the total budget of each? Do we know?
I failed to mention that both of these business-type funds do reimburse the city and the parish general fund for, let's say, the city and the parish at the beginning of the year through the allocation you see pick up a part of my salary. Later on during the year when LUS pays it back, the portion they pay back does go back to both the city and the parish general fund in proportion to what they paid in. So they reimburse us money instead of money going out. Their budget, the utilities system budget is $238 million. That's their expenditures. The revenues are $247 million.
That's for?
For LUS Utilities.
Utilities, right.
So it's a large portion of our budget.
Right, so, and fiber, just while you're up there.
Fiber's budget, they're expected to take in about $43 million in revenues, and their expenses, about $35 million.
Okay, all right, thank you. That's it? That concludes your, wait, hang on just a minute. Do we have any
Just as a point of clarification, LUS was, when did it come into effect, or when was its inception, do you know?
The utility system, I'm told the late 1800s, early
1896. 1896? 1896, all right. So is it considered a special revenue fund, or how is it listed in the budget?
It's considered an enterprise fund. It's a business-type fund, so it follows normal business-type accounting.
Right. So is it connected to, how is it connected to the city or to the parish? Is it connected to the parish at all?
The city issues the bonds that the system was built on.
Right.
And had issued the bonds back to the 1900s.
And it covers utilities provided to Lafayette City residents, right? Not to any residents outside of the city of Lafayette.
It does provide utilities outside the corporate limits.
It does?
When it's approved by the council, they charge people outside of the city a different rate
All right.
for the various services. Jeff Stewart would have to tell you that.
So what actually goes into the parish fund and what actually goes into the city fund?
Talking about the allocation that Laurie talked about. You know,
Yeah, the revenue, there are customers who are outside the city limits, customers inside the city limits. Is that the basis of the
No,
revenue
sir.
stream?
No, sir. The revenue charged for services for electric, water, and wastewater go back into the fund, and
The fund, which fund?
but utilities fund or the fiber, same thing for fiber.
Special fund, right?
It's their enterprise business type fund, and that's what actually pays for those services.
Okay. So I'm still not clear on what actually filters into the parish fund versus the city fund.
It's administrative and general costs, so their debits and credits for their bookkeeping goes through the accounting department.
I see. So that's part of the allocation system. It's determined by what services you, for instance, are providing, and then it's divvied between parish, separated between parish and city.
Well, because the
right?
city and the parish general fund paid for the accounting department at the beginning of the year, all during the year, we make LUS reimburse both of them a proportionate share.
All right, so I guess I'm asking a legal question now. Is this considered to be a special dedicated fund or not?
It is restricted to fund the services of water, wastewater, and electricity.
All right, so it's general fund expense or general fund revenue, correct?
Within the enterprise of that utility.
No, it's, what they can put into the general fund is restricted by bond covenants and ordinances.
So that bond ordinance really creates a special dedicated fund, right?
It is a separate,
So there's, all right, I've got a lot more questions, but I don't think we're going to get all those answers today. But it is a hybrid of a special dedicated fund and a general fund obligation and revenue source, correct?
it provides the city general fund the ILOT, but it's not a hybrid of any sort. It is strictly a
city-
business-type enterprise fund.
All right, okay, thanks.
And just to be clear, LUS Utilities and LUS Fiber are wholly owned by the city of Lafayette.
All right. That's the connection.
Yeah.
That I think I began the questions with. All right.
But this would be defined as, for instance, on our level at the university, on the state, you have either a business enterprise or an auxiliary. Would be identified as an auxiliary operation.
Oh, we don't use that term auxiliary
No, I think
in
what's-
local
I think it's the
government.
same as a business enterprise. So the revenue coming in, if the revenue from services that are delivered from outside the corporate limits does all revenue go into the same fund?
Yes, it all goes into the same fund, and it's used to pay for the service of providing water, electricity,
But
wastewater.
all revenue goes into that business enterprise fund?
Yes.
And then it goes and is subject to some allocation?
No, there's no allocation in there. There is a full cost accounting, allocation where they will go in and they will take the cost of purchasing. They will say, well, how many purchase orders was issued by this department? They're just a department of the city. So they'll take the cost of purchasing, divide it up by the number of purchase orders, and they will charge LUS Utilities that amount of purchase, the cost of purchasing based on the number of purchase orders they issued. They will charge the library based on the number of purchase orders they issued. But at the beginning of the year, the city general fund and the parish general fund shared the cost of purchasing. So when other people pay me back, we give it back to both the city and the parish general fund based on the amount they paid at the beginning of the year.
Go ahead.
So at the end of the year, all of the expense of the fund is attributed to the fund itself, the LUS fund. So
LUS,
there's no out-of-pocket cost except up front from the city or the parish fund, correct?
well, it's just for shared services.
But they're being reimbursed as the year goes on.
They're being partially reimbursed. They're not reimbursed fully. It's partially reimbursed, and then the parish and the general funds bear what is left through the city parish allocation.
All right, so that's based on the determination by someone about the allocation of that additional cost.
The initial cost to the,
Shouldn't that be the cost of the LUS fund? All of the cost for operating the services should be borne by the LUS fund,
it
correct?
is. It is. That's what they do. They pay us back
Okay.
their share of purchasing or accounting. LUS will pay about $4 million back, and it goes to the city and the parish based on,
All right, so is that the total amount of in lieu of tax?
no, in lieu of tax is separate. In lieu of tax is a payment made strictly to the city general fund, and that is calculated as 12% of gross revenues. And then there's some local ordinances where the local government at various points in time decided that 12% of gross revenues was too much. And so they limited the amount of ILOT that would be put back into the city general fund. That was done, I believe, back when oil prices were escalating very fast and very high, and it would have led to a windfall on the city general fund, and they felt like it wasn't fair to make the ratepayers bear that extra cost, so they limited the amount of fuel that we adjust in the calculation.
Okay, so the ILOT amount for the current fiscal year, the ILOT amount is projected to be how much?
About it's between 23 and 25 million.
23 to 25 million. So of the 200 and, total budget again?
38,
250, round about 250, 240.
47.
Of that,
So of 247,
23,800,000 is what's budgeted for ILOT.
so that comes out of the 247.
Yes,
That's covered by the 247 in
that's
gross revenue.
in 247. No, that's, LUS's revenue is 241. Their expenses is 232. That's in their total expense number.
Within the 232 expenditures is an amount of 23 million or the 25 million of ILOT.
Yes.
Okay. So the only other question I have is, remember in the, I'm going to date myself, but I'm going to remember as a young child in the 60s, the utilities wars that we had in Lafayette Parish between Slimco and Gulf States at the time, now Entergy, and an arrangement was eventually reached about the acquisition of power lines when you had annexations or you had such and such. There was a formula by which utilities agreed to reimburse each other for whatever capital expense or something, I think is the way it worked. So in those residents, just to provide some background and some clarity, those residents that are receiving utilities outside the corporate limits, if I presume from electrical standpoint, they were on someone else's line?
I'll defer to Jeff.
I'll get Jeff Stewart up here. He's familiar with them.
Jeff Stewart, Engineering and Power Supply Manager. Could you repeat the question? I want to make sure I get it
Well,
right.
I'm just saying, we are delivering
Utilities to outside the city.
utilities to outside the corporate limits of Lafayette,
Right.
correct? And so I presume that those lines at one point belonged to another utility.
Not necessarily. Some of them we have acquired through expropriation or some other means, but some of them we constructed ourselves. Currently, we have franchise agreements with the city of Broussard and the city of Youngsville for electric services. So we would initiate the construction of those electric lines. Anything else that we've acquired, you know, we had some expropriation in the late 90s, early 2000s. We acquired several hundred customers. We actually purchased those lines based on the formula
That's
set
the
by the
formula
courts.
between utilities,
Right,
right? Whether
yes.
it's a Slimco's line or
Entergy or
Entergy's
somebody, yes.
lines, that formula is still in place.
That formula is still part of the original settlement and judgment, and that's what we based any, you know, we would base any future acquisitions on.
Right, but not all electrical, I'm just sticking to electrical just
Okay.
for simplicity. Not all electrical services were initially someone else's line.
That's correct.
And so under what, just out of curiosity, under what arrangement would that happen outside of the city limits that we would construct? Is that a new subdivision? Is it a new?
New developments.
A
New
new
developments.
development.
New developments, you know, we have state law to follow, and the Public Service Commission, under their jurisdictional utilities, have rules around who can acquire what and who gets new customers. We would follow those, but we could, for new developments, construct a facility to serve new customers.
And so most of those that we are servicing outside the current corporate limits were via that
Yes,
situation?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
We
I'm just
had an
curious.
arrangement until very recently with Slimco for a certain area. We could acquire new customers. That's since expired, but we're still kind of operating under those same rules.
Just curious.
Jeff, when you say we acquired, we bought.
LUS.
Who is the we?
LUS,
LUS?
yes, I'm an
The
LUS
city,
guy.
the city of Lafayette. LUS is just a department of the city.
So the city of Lafayette is generating revenue from areas outside of the city limits by virtue of the LUS, these LUS services.
And it stays in the LUS fund, the business type fund.
Okay, I understand.
Any other questions?
Just, you know, Paul brings up a good point, the rates, we do have out-of-city rates that are at a premium. So electric rates are about a 10% higher outside the city than they are in the city, and water rates are around double. So there is a premium for us to extend our services outside the city limits.
And one more question, would that apply to Lafayette North Water?
So our wholesale water customers, it's a different arrangement. We have metering points with the 6 wholesale customers, and we calculate those rates every 2 years based on a cost allocation.
All right. Any other?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
the ILOC gets paid back to the city general fund, you said?
Yes,
Is any, there's no portion that goes to the parish based on those assets providing services in those parish areas?
no.
Okay. And that's because it's city-owned assets?
It's a city-owned asset, and the city of Lafayette backs the bonds. They're financially responsible for the bonds, and it's part of the bond covenants.
Thank you.
Right, so the parish does not have a utility system, so there would be nobody to reimburse. It would have to be either that or an arrangement with a utility that's servicing outside the corporate limits.
Right. So the parish would be receiving whatever property taxes are generated by these private energy companies that have property and service lines in the parish. Where I'm from, we were 100% Entergy with a nuclear power plant, and we got millions and millions of dollars into the parish general fund for the property taxes of that nuclear power plant. It was private, it was not a government-owned plant.
You talking about the Felicianas?
Nope, Waterford 3.
Oh, okay, all right, I got it, okay, all right. Any other questions? Okay, thank you. All right, fiber, anyone wants to, you want to have a brief discussion on that?
Good afternoon, Kayla Miles, Interim Director of LUS Fiber. I believe Lori did a great job kind of covering LUS Fiber along with LUS. As mentioned, we're governed by the city council, so we don't really see any concerns related to where the responsibility of decision-making power lies. It is important to note that we do have infrastructure footprint and a customer base that does go outside of the city limits as we've been expanding our footprint. However, the business practices along how we serve our customers doesn't change from inside the city versus outside the city. Wherever our customers are located, they're provided the same service at the same rates since we operate in a highly competitive environment. So we have to stay competitive no matter where they're located.
And I believe you do pay franchise fees in those other cities?
Yes.
To those other cities, not to the city of Lafayette.
The Public Service Commission governs fiber also, yeah.
Well,
Any
could I
questions?
clarify that just a little bit?
Okay.
The Public Service Commission governs fiber only to the extent to enforce compliance with the Fair Competition Act, which, as most of you may know, is a law that required the financial segregation of the operations of fiber versus the rest of LCG. So they provide for enforcement of that act, mostly through audits and review of audits performed by LCG, and they can perform their own audit if they desire. Other than that, they actually do not regulate LUS Fiber on every aspect of their operations.
But there's no, just to be clear, there's no territorial issue like there is on utilities?
Right, that's right.
There's not the same thing that you have with Entergy and Slimco, and that does not exist.
Right, there aren't the same kind of rules about certain utilities may have dibs on service territory. There's nothing like that with regard. Right.
Okay, all right. You have a handout on fiber ordinances. You want somebody else to-
We were just asked to provide the ordinances that were presented within the last fiscal year. So we just wanted to showcase how it was the city council that was the governing authority over all of our ordinances, just to reiterate.
Okay. Any questions on fiber? Okay,
Thank you.
all right. All right, Police Department.
I do have a pie chart for the police department, but you'll notice that all the slices are blue, representing city money. The city police department is funded primarily in the city general fund. They are a department of the city of Lafayette. They are, as I said, 100% funded by the city. From the pie, you can see what comes from the city general fund and what comes from a dedicated property tax. The $1 million up there is a little bit deceiving. That $1 million, and this is the proposed budget, mind you, any budget amendments that have taken place or any actions after the introduction of the budget is not reflected in this chart. But the $1 million right there is what the city pays to the sheriff to house city prisoners in the facility downtown. And so it's really not money available for the police department to spend. They may enter into other projects and agreements with other law enforcement agencies, but we no longer share expenses for special groups like Metro Narcotics, right? We're on our own for that. We're not paying for any other shared services with...
There's still the Metro crime scene.
And that comes all from city general fund money. And that's it. Oh, there is no allocation, since it's all city money and it's a city department. The parish doesn't pay for anything out of this. If anybody does pay for anything, it would be the sheriff or another police department, but it's not coming from the parish general fund.
Okay. Chief, go ahead and identify yourself.
All right, Toby Aguilar, Chief of Police in Lafayette. I've prepared a short PowerPoint about our department, if you guys are interested in hearing it.
Proceed.
The Lafayette Police Department is the primary law enforcement agency within the city limits of Lafayette, and we provide the services to our citizens in Lafayette, all law enforcement services here in the city. We enjoy a long tradition of service and protection to our citizens. We are made up of 289 commissioned officers, 44 non-commissioned personnel. Last year, in 2018, we entered 191,678 calls for service in our city. And I absolutely love that picture. That is a Lafayette police officer, one of our students who couldn't help herself, walked up and kissed the horse right on the lips.
Not on a smacker.
Next, please. The organization is like any typical police department with administration, patrol, services, and criminal investigations, and our department handles all matters within the city of Lafayette. We have a number of different specialized sections, including mounted patrol, motor patrol, SWAT team, tactical narcotics team, training division, crime scene, school resource officers, all of it very important, all of it a part of our greater department. And next, please. We've been pivoting at the Lafayette Police Department towards problem-solving community policing in the last several years, and I think we are seeing some of the positive results from that, certainly in the community support we have received in recent weeks, most notably for our pay plan, which passed last night. Building trust in our community is important. It's important for law enforcement across the country, and it certainly is important here. And we do that in a number of ways. And that you see an image of the command staff on one of our community relations trust walks, which we do quarterly in the city. It's the command staff of the police department. It's our community relations committee members who are citizens that walk with us. And we meet and greet the public, talk about their issues, and deal with them immediately. It's just one of the programs we have with building trust in our community. We recently had our annual Trunk and Treat event, which is one of those services we provide to the community because it's important to me as chief that particularly children see our officers in a positive light and have that exposure. And it's just one of those ways we're keeping the lines of communication open with the public. Now, I did look for ordinances in 2018-2019 fiscal year, found 21, and all 21 ordinances were for city consideration. And that's about all I have. I'd be free, I'd answer any questions you guys may have for me.
I'm scanning your ordinances. Most of these appear to be a budget adjustment.
Yes,
Is that correct?
yes.
Is there a non-budget adjustment ordinance in this bunch?
Maybe for the police dog, when they retire?
Yeah, you're right,
police
that
dog?
would be one. We had to acquire a couple new canines this past year. One died of cancer, I think another was retired, and so that would be an example of one.
Sometimes you have grant applications for approval, but
Right, grant applications. Most of it are budget approval items, typically grant money coming in.
Any bonds that would be allocated towards police or fire?
No, sir. I guess theoretically, there could be if they wanted to build another building and sell bonds, but we don't have any designated for it right now.
For that, okay. All right. Any questions?
Have there been any opportunities for collaboration or consolidation or the providing of any services outside of the jurisdiction of Lafayette?
Well,
City of Lafayette.
we do participate in a couple different task forces. One of the Fugitive Task Force with the U.S. Marshal's Office, or a DEA task force with our federal partners. We do have a task force called the Metro Crime Scene, along with the Sheriff's Office.
How does the Metro Crime Scene, that collaboration work?
I believe we just have a contract. The sheriff is the fiscal officer, and in that contract, we deem how many dollars will be spent and who's allocated to that.
So if there's a crime scene outside of the city of Lafayette, do you participate? Does anyone on the police department participate in that crime scene investigation?
Yes, all of the officers assigned to that task force will work according to a schedule. So no matter where the crime occurs,
So
they
what
will
about
respond.
inside the city? If there is a crime scene inside the city limits, are there personnel from the sheriff's office participating in that crime scene investigation?
Yes, they do.
And that's the fiscal separation, if you will, of the expenses. Is that done by contract, or is that done by ordinance, or how is that done?
I would say both. I mean, the contract would have to be approved, but I do think we have a contract in place that dictates who gets what.
Wasn't there at one point in the past, and for a long period of time, there was a consolidated Metro Narcotics
That's
task
right.
force?
That's right, and that was dissolved.
Why? Do you have any idea why it was dissolved?
Yes. The sheriff and I couldn't agree on how the task force should best be run.
Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, thank you, Chief.
All right, thank you.
Fire Department.
I do have a pie chart for the fire department. It is a city fire department. There is no city-parish allocation, but there are some shared costs that I'll go over that come from the parish general fund. They share the cost 50-50 of a clerk to do the office work for all the VFDs, and I'll talk about the VFDs a little bit later. But they have a clerk that tends to all those contracts and paperwork. The parish pays the city general fund, because this is a department in the city general fund. The parish pays the city $25,000 for part of the salary of a communications officer. That's the person at the dispatch center that will help dispatch fire calls. I think you can ask Chief about the rules for how fire calls need to be dispersed, but I know there are some rules. So the parish pays $25,000 towards that, and the parish general fund pays $25,000 towards the salary and expenses of a parish-wide fire inspector. The parish also pays a nominal fee of $10,000. It used to be a lot more, but it's been cut down to $10,000 for a City of Lafayette fire truck to respond. I think they try to send one person to every fire in the parish. Chief can verify that?
Yeah, I'm going to present that.
Okay, and so that's what they pay the $10,000 for. And then the city also responds to calls outside of the city if within a certain amount of time of the dispatch center receiving the call, it hasn't been responded to. So the city will provide those responses, and they enter into intergovernmental agreements, but they are not reimbursed for that. I think the biggest thing that will come up with a city-parish, two different councils, is that the parish governing authority will certify population for the various fire protection service areas in the parish of Lafayette. And that determines the distribution of the 2% fire insurance premium. And it's quite large. We get about $1 million. It's up there, $936,000 in 2% fire insurance rebate money. And that's money from people throughout the parish when they pay their property tax. That money goes to Baton Rouge, and the state distributes that. So it will be the parish governing authority that'll certify the populations for the fire service areas. It's not necessarily the city, it's the fire service areas. So that would be the area where I think there would be some working both with the city council and the parish council. The parish general fund also gives money from the parish general fund to various volunteer fire departments throughout the parish, and it's a couple of different amounts depending upon the needs of that VFD. Some of them, it's a lump sum money, and some of them, it's a lump sum money, and maybe we pay for 1 or 2 part-time firemen at that particular volunteer fire department because they weren't having enough people respond, or because of the fire insurance rating The Parish General Fund has put that up. That money has gone up and down over the years since I've been here. They used to also give them a lump sum money of about $70,000, and it would rotate what volunteer fire department each year. That hasn't been done for a couple of years for lack of funds.
Go ahead and identify yourself.
Good afternoon, Robert Benoit, Fire Chief, Lafayette Fire Department. Pleasure to be here. The presentation I have is just an overview of the fire department. I'm going to talk about the city fire department first, then we get into the parish fire department. City has 285 employees, 4 in administration, 250 in emergency operations is the guys who actually fight fires that are on the fire trucks, and we have 31 in the technical division of the fire department, which consists of training, communications, and fire prevention. We have 14 fire stations in the city. Of those 14 fire stations, only 13 of those stations house engine companies and ladder companies. The fire stations are located 1.5 mile apart from each other, road miles apart from each other, and that's designed by the Property Insurance Association, known as PIEL, which grades and rates fire departments for fire protection services. They grade those fire departments on a scale from 1 to 10, with a Class 1 being the best, Class 10 being the worst. The city of Lafayette is at a Class 2, high Class 2. Annual budget, my numbers may be a little bit different from Laurie's, but $27.9 million with 26.4 city and 1.4 million parish. Even though we don't really control anything on the parish side, the money is just attached to the fire department's budget for accounting purposes. Starting salary for a firefighter is $2,500 a month. At the end of 12 months, they receive a stipend from the state at $500 a month for after the first 12 months of service, once they're confirmed as a firefighter. Population we're serving was 127,000 at the time that this class rating was, took place, and the area that we covered was 54 square miles of territory. Organizational chart for the fire department that just kind of gives you the breakdown of how the fire department is organized. It's pretty much paramilitary type illustration with clerical duties, emergency operations as a deputy chief in charge. 3 shifts, A crew, B crew, C crew. They work 24 on, 24 off. Do that for 3 days and they go off for 4 days. They average 10 days a month coming to work, but 1 day is equivalent to 2 work days. So when you look at the total picture, they really come into work 20 days a month. The average work schedule is 53 hours a week, and they can't earn any overtime until they max out at that 53 hours a week. It's cycled over a 27-day cycle for a total of 212 hours, minus 12 hours that you have to give them off, what they classify as a Kelly day. If not, it would cost you an additional $1 million to pay the overtime for those hours. Then you have your technical operations, which consists of communications, training, fire prevention. Hazmat coordinator, which falls under fire suppression, wears 2 hats. And of course, you have your chain of command, as you see under the assistant chief, district chief, and captains. Next slide gives you the number of fire stations in the city and their location. The central fire station is the only station that's strictly administration. There are no fire trucks in that station. That's one of the stations that used to house an engine company, a ladder company, and rescue. But back in 1982, when they opened the fire station number 10 on Pinhook, because we weren't getting any points for the central fire station, reason being Station 2 on Mud Avenue and Station 5 on Johnson Street overlapped, so we weren't getting any points. Instead of creating a new fire station, they shut that station down and sent that engine company to Pinhook. The resources we have, 14 pumpers, frontline pumpers that respond to calls, 4 aerials that respond to calls, 3 rescue trucks, 1 hazmat truck, 6 spare pumpers, 6 spare trucks, which are 4 pumpers and 2 aerials, a command unit, a service truck, mobile cascade system, and we have some small terrain vehicles that we use, especially during downtown alive or when we have to respond to a train derailment or an 18-wheeler derailment where we need to have something small to get around in those areas. Next slide gives you communications center. We dispatch 11,678 calls for service last year. 8,437 of those calls were in the city. 3,241 calls were in the parish. City of Lafayette is responsible for all dispatching for fire apparatus in the city and parish of Lafayette. Under the statute in the state of Louisiana, only a commissioned firefighter can dispatch a fire apparatus. Thus, when you dial 911 and you say you're having a fire-related emergency, regardless of where it's at, in the city or parish of Lafayette, that call is going to be automatically transferred to the fire department's dispatcher, and we will in turn dispatch the closest fire apparatus to that particular call. Reason being they do it like that is when 911 came into existence in the early 80s, they were using the operators as call takers, and so by the time you gave all this information to the fire department, you had 1, 2, 3 houses burning. So now it's an automatic transfer to the fire department when you say you're having a fire-related emergencies. We also respond to medical calls. It's a partnership that we engaged in with Acadian Ambulance back in 1999 to enhance the quality of life. So what happens is when you call 911 and you're saying you're having some type of life-threatening medical emergency, such as chest pains, breathing problems, I'm short of breath, or I'm bleeding, that's going to trigger 911 to send that call to the Lafayette Fire Department. Because we're located 1.5 miles from each other, we can get anywhere within the city within 3 to 5 minutes. So if you're having a heart attack or you're having a stroke, those 5 minutes are critical to the type of life you're going to enjoy once you get to the hospital. That's something that works well with us. While we're responding to that call, Acadian Ambulance is responding behind us with their medics to take over with the advanced care. We have several agreements with the volunteer fire departments, including the parish. The city of Lafayette is responsible for all incidents within the city of Lafayette, hazardous materials and vehicle extrication. The fire department is also responsible for calls in the parish that deals with hazardous materials and some vehicle extrications depending on what type of call it is. We have an automatic aid agreement with the volunteer fire departments to respond to their jurisdictions on particular calls, which also enhances their rating. There's no cost involved in that because they reciprocate with us. We also have mutual aid agreements with the volunteer fire departments to where if there's something large that they can't handle alone, then we respond according to their requests and assist with that, and vice versa. Case in point would have been the fire call last year, earlier off Ambassador Caffrey, East Bayou Parkway, where apartment complex burned, and it was a real bad situation. It was getting away from us, so we wound up having to use every piece of apparatus and firefighter that was on duty, which averages about 65 guys per shift. So we pulled all our resources in there to attack that fire, to keep it on that property and save as much as we could. But we utilized the volunteers to come in and take over the city for us. So they came in and they strategically staged themselves throughout the city to take care of any other calls that we may have had in the city of Lafayette. That's the type of agreements that we have with each other in that regards. The hazardous materials unit is a specialized unit that's housed at Station 5 on Johnson Street near UL. That unit responds to a lot of calls, anything dealing with chemicals or train derailments or 18-wheeler derailments, incidents that unit responds. That unit also responds in a lot of other parishes for assistance because the state police is in charge of hazardous materials for the state of Louisiana, so they enforce those regulations that are involved in that. We cross-train with them on a regular basis. We get certified with them, so they have a good working relationship with us, and so a lot of times they will call us into other parishes to assist them. One of the good things about the hazardous materials units is that we can recoup our losses. So for every hazardous material incident that we respond to, we will send a bill to the company that caused the spill to recoup our losses for the services that we provide in that particular area. And of course, if we have any issues, state police is there to enforce those codes to make sure that we get reimbursed for those services. We have an urban search and rescue team. That's part of the fire department of those 285 people. That team went into operations last year for the first time, and we did respond to 2 hurricanes in Florida and Carolina to assist under the emergency operations system. That team is composed of the Lafayette Fire Department, Crowley, Opelousas area, and Franklin area. So we made sure we pulled in some small departments around us to give us a team. It's identified as Rescue Team 4, Task Force Team 4 in the state. Okay, I think that's it on that slide. Fire Prevention Bureau, their jobs are twofold. We have inspectors and investigators. The inspector's job is to go out there and inspect buildings for fire code issues. The investigators go out and they investigate fires. We investigate fires for two reasons. One, to determine whether or not it was intentionally set, and the other one is to learn whether or not you may have had a product failure on an item, such as a toaster may have a defect in it, and we inspect that to make sure that we understand the causes of that. The fire investigators are commissioned officers. They are commissioned through the sheriff because they do their own investigations, their own criminal investigations. They're part of that crime scene task force that's used. So if we have an unusual situation in the city or the parish, that crime scene task force comes together as a unit, and they investigate that particular fire together. We also have a junior fire setters program where we have individuals who intentionally start fires. We have an educational program that we use to teach them. We also have a community risk reduction program where we identify key areas in the city where we think they are target areas for fires, and so we go in there and we take care of those issues. We have our own training facility off of Dugard Road. That facility takes care of all of our needs. It's one of the premier facilities. I think it's 20 years old now. We built it in 2 phases. We do all of our training there. If there's some things that we can't, that our instructors are not certified to do, we can bring an instructor into us. So the only other place that we really travel outside of the state for training is at the National Fire Academy, which is in Emmitsburg, Maryland, where that's pretty much paid for by the feds. Volunteer training departments, the volunteer departments also train at that facility. We take care of their needs as well in training them. Let's see what else I got there. That's it on that next slide. Laurie was talking a little bit about some of the costs on the contract. Because the parish has a contract with the city to provide certain services in the parish as it relates to fire protection. We have a fire communications officer who the parish picks up the cost for that position. We have a fire inspector that the parish picks up the cost for that position to inspect and to investigate fires in their area. We have a records clerk that we're sharing the cost with, and that records clerk is doing duties for the city of Lafayette and for the volunteer chiefs as well. There's a $6,000 tower rental that's used for the volunteers to be able to communicate through radio traffic. And of course, the parish pays the city $10,000 to have the closest fire apparatus in the city respond to a call in the parish. It used to be $100,000, but because of financial issues, it was reduced to $10,000. Okay, next slide, see what I've got there. That pretty much takes care of the Lafayette Fire Department. Now, on the parish side, these are the number of fire departments in the parish. These are the number of stations they have, and the last number to that gives you the class rating. Again, I said that a fire rating is from a class 1 to a class 10. You can see the different ratings that they have. In the unincorporated area of the parish, which I think takes care of about 90,000 people, it's unfortunate, but they were retrograded to a class 6 from a class 5 in the last rating. This is something that we had been talking about for the past 15 years, that we saw that because there was growth in those areas and the funding wasn't there to be able to maintain that status, we started to see a drop in percentage points all the way up to the point to where we retrograded from one class to another. Don't really know what the impact of that will be. The homeowners will tell us when their insurance premiums get renewed. It's usually between a 10 and 15% increase in insurance premiums on homeowners for that. I think that pretty much takes care of that. And of course, that's the external appropriations budget that's attached to the Lafayette Fire Department with a breakdown of all those costs for services that are provided to the volunteers as well as the city of Lafayette. You see that big chunk of money up to $515,000. That's part of the 2% rebate. Insurance companies regulate that. So what they do is they give money back to the city, to the states. The states in turn give that money to each individual fire department that classifies themselves as a legitimate fire department for population served. Lafayette gets the bulk of that because Lafayette's responding to has a population of 127,000 people in there. Yes.
Sorry, I forgot about the transportation money that comes from the parish general fund. You'll see that's $22,900. A few years ago, and it might be quite some time ago, the parish issued some debt to buy some pump, he knows the technical term, for what we bought for all the VFDs the parish bought.
Bought some tanker trucks on the city parish, President Walter Como. So each one of the volunteers have a tanker truck that's owned by the parish to be able to provide water into those areas that they respond to for calls for service.
And so that money is to maintain that equipment, because the parish made that initial investment. They felt it necessary to provide money to continue maintenance of that.
Any other self-generated revenue from fees or
Small fees that we collect for reports. When you call for.
inspections or, I mean, any of that? No, that's,
Nothing substantial.
No, it's minor. The biggest revenue we get is on hazardous materials calls, where those are expensive, and all we're doing is just recouping our losses for man-hours, equipment that was damaged, that needs to be replaced, and decontamination of all of those products.
with the emergency, does that conclude your
Yes, sir.
presentation? Okay. With the emergency response piece of it, does that require additional training,
Yes.
EMS training or something like that by the?
Whether you're a paid firefighter or a volunteer firefighter, there's a certification attached to that's mandated by the state of Louisiana. You have to be a firefighter 1 certified to be able to go inside of a burning structure. So you've got to get those 240 hours of training to be certified and pass those exams to be certified to be able to do that. If not, all you can do is drive a truck to a scene and pour water from the exterior, but you can't
Well, I'm
not
saying,
go inside.
Yeah, when you respond, you said if somebody's having chest pains or something like
Right.
that.
We don't bill for any of those services.
No, but I mean, do the, the responding firefighters, I presume that they're trying to provide immediate care upon arrival.
What we're classified as first responders, we're trained to the level of being able to.
I'm just curious.
Do CPR, administer oxygen, help you with your medicines.
I got you.
And that
Those
training's
kinds of
done at your training center, right?
Right, everything is done at our training center. When we get an individual in, they go through our academy. Our academies last 6 months. And reason being is because we make sure that when they leave the academy, they have all the basic information and certifications they need to be able to go out there and do their job and serve that working test period for 18 months.
The tower rental that you were talking about, I presume that these volunteer, they're all have interoperable.
Yes, they have pagers and they have radios, and so that tower is used to be able to pull that signals to communicate back
But I
and
mean,
forth.
there's total interoperability. You know, we went through that
Yes.
fight kind of,
Yes.
about 10 years ago. So they're also connected.
Right, they're connected to that system as well. It's a 700 system that was put in place by the state police, and so we all are shared on the use of those towers.
Is it managed by 911 Communications?
Yes.
Emergency operations?
911 is in charge of making sure we have all the radios and that we need to be able to communicate back and forth with each other.
When the city responds out to this $10,000 number,
Yes.
does that cover cost?
No, it's not.
Yeah, so what would be the cost? What's the actual cost?
We used to get $100,000 a year.
And
but
would that
when
cover cost?
Not really.
No, but I mean, is the cost based on,
The
cost
cost was
based-
based to make sure you weren't giving away services.
yeah, so, but I
Okay.
mean, is it based on what it costs to respond to a particular fire, or is it just a general?
It's
Number.
more of saying that you're not giving away those services,
Yeah.
but if you really wanted to put a cost factor to having a truck respond to a call, giving you a typical 1,200 square foot home, that if we decide we're gonna respond with one truck and we have to bill for those services, you'll be looking at, on a minimum for a small truck, which is a pumper, $750 an hour. If an aerial truck went there, it was $1,000 an hour. That's not including the water, the equipment, and the personnel that goes along with that truck. And those are the kind of charges we bill hazardous materials companies for. because the Fed said we can recoup those losses in that.
Okay. Yes.
Chief, during our budget session, I know Councilman Boudreaux asked you to look into a potential revenue generating, but I can't recall what it was. Do you remember?
He
what
asked
we
whether or not it was legal for us to be able to bill residents for fire services, and Paul and his team looked at that and said that we could not bill residents for fire protection services.
Okay, and not, I guess not even the residents, but their insurance companies? That was what we
He
considered?
said, no, we could not do that.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Mr. Suits?
First of all, Chief, I want to thank you for your service. I think I'll probably date us both, but I remember our time together started when you were a fire investigator, and I was an ADA and handled a lot of your cases, so I want to thank you for your years and years of service.
Thank you.
I'm gathering from what you've told us today that the fire department is probably one of the two services that have been provided in the city parish government that are perhaps most considered to be consolidation. The other is the recreation department.
Yes, sir.
So you do provide, the fire department does provide service in the parish, and by my look of it, you have responded to 8,000 in the city and 3,000 in the parish. So
In conjunction with the volunteers, right?
right. But when you are dispatched, when your firemen are dispatched to a scene that is outside the city limits, you don't distinguish in your mind the fact that it is a parish circumstance versus a city circumstance,
No,
right?
sir. No, sir.
When you appear on the scene, you are a fireman for the parish of Lafayette, the citizens of the parish of Lafayette.
That's correct.
Correct.
And when a citizen calls 911 and requests services, they don't know what's going on behind the scene. But the dispatcher is sending the closest apparatus, because some of those engine companies may be on another call. So you never know where that truck is coming from.
Sure.
And because they don't know the layout of it, all they see is a truck, which gets there
And
within
I'm
that
gathering the actual line fireman, person who actually hits the site and begins to fight the fire, are they considered law enforcement officers? If someone interfered with
Oh, yes.
that fireman outside of the parish, outside of the city limits, does that fireman have some
He's got some
law
protection.
enforcement duties or responsibility?
Not the firefighter, but the fire investigators do. However, the firefighters have the same protection that a police officer has in the line of duty, where if someone chooses to interfere with
So-
them trying to extinguish that fire.
So
and you-
theoretically, they could make an arrest, as it would be a
That's where the
a citizen's
investigators come
arrest, a citizen's arrest.
That's where the investigators come in.
Well, tell me about the investigators. The investigators, as you were, 20
Yes.
years ago,
Yes,
you had a special commission from the sheriff
that's correct.
that authorized you to act as in the same capacity and the same authority, with the same authority as a sheriff's deputy, correct?
That's correct.
And you still have that, and that still is a relationship between the fire department, the city fire department, and the sheriff's office,
Yes, sir.
right?
That's correct.
So when your fire investigators appear on a scene, there's no difference in their minds whether it's a city function or a parish function.
That's correct.
And your dispatcher has no direction, one way or the other, that a service is being provided for the city or for the parish.
No, sir.
Correct. And as a matter of fact, everyone who has some duties and has some responsibilities with the fire department outside the city of Lafayette is likewise not providing a function with a consciousness that that function is a city function or a parish function.
That's correct.
All right, so the funding that has come from the parish, you indicated that it used to be $100,000 for the use of a city fire truck. Well, who determined that? Who determined that the cost to be imposed upon the parish fund when a city fire truck is used, it should be $100,000? Who determined that?
That goes back to Jack Montese era, when he was fire chief. And at that time, they were trying to figure out a way to improve the fire rating for the parish. And so they looked at hiring an additional dispatcher and hiring an inspector. The reason for the dispatcher was to be able to have our communications center in the city of Lafayette dispatch the fire apparatus. The reason for the inspector was to not have to wait on the state fire marshal's office to come in and inspect the fire in our jurisdiction. So those two things together, coupled with the fact that they wanted to make sure that the Lafayette Fire Department, which was on duty 24/7, could send the closest apparatus to meet the volunteers in the unincorporated areas of the parish. And what they looked at was well, how many people would be on that truck? And the majority of the fire pumpers in this city and across the nation average 3 people on the truck. You have the captain, which is a supervisor, the driver who drives the truck and controls the gauges, and fight fires as well, and the firefighter. So they put that cost together back then based on those 3 individuals and their hourly rate at that time, with the understanding of how much wear and tear you would have on that pumper for responding in those areas, and the tools and equipment that would be used to extinguish that fire.
So
That's how they came up with that cost.
For lack of a better term, bean counters came up with some determination about the service, and that's how many beans were required to be taken from the pot of the parish fund,
Yes.
for lack of a better way to put it.
Correct.
Has
But
that
over
20
the years,
Has that $25,000 changed over the years?
No, that $25,000 has stayed there since the time that they implemented this contract between the city and the parish. It's never increased.
well, but the point I'm trying to make is someone made that determination of what that cost should be for the parish fund,
That's
correct?
correct. That's correct.
And you said these are all based on contracts with the city. I think that was your terminology.
It's an annual contract that has to be signed between the city and the parish and the volunteers to provide those services for a
Right,
12-month period.
So the city and the parish have contracts between themselves to determine the amount of this funding that the parish has had to bear all these
City and the
years?
parish has a contract between themselves for the Lafayette Fire Department to provide services in the unincorporated areas. And then the parish has a contract with each individual fire department in the parish to provide those services as well.
Well, who signs this may be a legal question, who signs the contract between the city and the parish? Who signs it for the city and who signs it for the parish?
What it is the
The one person.
the mayor president. He's wearing 2 hats.
Sounds, well, I mean, we're giggling about it, but it sounds peculiar, doesn't it?
Been like that since 1996. Yeah.
And, correct, that's my point is, this whole process, and I think today we've heard a lot of the confusion in determining an allocation about individual employees, about determining a use of certain services. That's the point. Since 1996, that's been the policy that has been inflicted, for lack of a better word, on the city parish government, or by city parish government on both city and parish funds, right?
That's correct.
But again, the services you provide basically are a consolidated service. You provide service to areas that are not simply the city of Lafayette, right?
That's correct.
All right, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
So the dispatch, the Lafayette dispatch, fire department dispatch personnel, they dispatch, within the parish, they dispatch volunteer apparatus
That's correct.
at the same time that they would dispatch city apparatus,
That's correct.
right? So how does that work in the other municipalities? Do they have their own dispatchers? When a call comes in from Broussard resident, then where does it go?
It goes to 911.
Yeah.
In the basement of the courthouse.
And then- right.
When you say, if it says fire-related, the 911 operator automatically sends that call to the Lafayette Fire Department's dispatcher.
Right, so you're dispatching for Broussard, based on a contract,
That's correct.
right?
That's correct.
So you're dispatching their apparatus
That's
within
correct.
Broussard?
That's correct.
And then does each municipality have one of these other agreements to go outside the parish?
Each fire department
Each fire department
Has
within
a
the municipality
contract
has a contract with
Parish.
the parish?
to take care of their immediate area.
Right, so everybody has a kind of a cross
Right.
operational agreement.
That's correct. There's three agreements: the contract between city and parish and volunteers. Then there's an automatic aid agreement between the fire departments among ourselves, and then there's a mutual aid agreement between the fire departments among ourselves.
Right, so Broussard, if there was a,
If that's a fire in Broussard,
well, no,
and
let me-
Youngsville need to help out, Youngsville is gonna go help out, Broussard
they're gonna go help out Broussard.
under that
Broussard can help
automatic
out
or mutual aid
Lafayette.
agreement. Broussard will come out and help out Lafayette as
They
well.
can help out Lafayette.
That's right. And that was one of the things I explained about the big fire we had on Ambassador Caffrey.
Right.
Where we made a decision to commit all of our forces in the city at that time to combat that fire. So the volunteers came in with a unit and took care of the rest of the city for us.
Right, so logistically, I'm just, again, curiosity's got me. Logistically, when that happened, then do they relocate assets to the firehouses, or how does
Yes.
it? Yeah.
Yes, we'll send them to a particular house. The dispatcher controls everything. Everything goes through the dispatcher. So whatever's going on in somebody's life or in somebody's role in the city of Lafayette or the parish, when you dial 911 and you identify it's a fire-related situation, it automatically transfers to the Lafayette Fire Department's dispatcher. And so from there, I get the call. So I know everything that's going on as it pertains to fire. When a fire company is dispatched, then I get the call saying that company is going somewhere for a fire department service.
Right, but in that particular case, when it reached a certain critical level and you had to backfill, then assets from those communities and volunteers actually showed up to the firehouses in Lafayette.
We'll assign them a station to go to.
Assign them a
Right.
station to,
Right, because what happens is in a typical house fire, you're gonna have, in the city of Lafayette, you're gonna have 4 apparatus responding to that
Right,
call.
right.
3 pumpers and an aerial. Okay, so you got trucks moving around a lot, and things are going on constantly. So the dispatcher controls all that. Dispatcher knows where to send companies at, because there are some times when you got some big things going on in one area of the city, and they'll move engine companies from across the other area to come protect that area while they're associated with that particular call. So once that happens and we make a decision that we need some additional help, we don't bring them to the scene, we send them to take care of our city while we take care of our issues. And there's a lot of cross-training that goes along with that, which is done at the training division to make sure we try to simulate every type of scenario that we can come across.
so that's truly an example of consolidation by contract and agreement, right? Yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
I have a couple of questions. With all the mutual aid agreements, and I'm just trying to determine, Lori, I'm just trying to determine what ordinances are going to be considered by the parish council. I know like they got the rebate. She spoke of the rebate amount that comes from the state, and it's $1 million, and the city gets 50% of that $1 million. She said that the parish council is going to have to approve those funds, right, Lori?
The parish council certifies the populations so that the state could divide those funds.
Oh, the
But
population.
I wasn't thinking about all the other agreements that
Right.
Chief just brought up. And because the parish does pay for that communications officer, for the fire inspector, for the clerk, I imagine that there may be some new agreements now that the parish and the city may enter into, or do you think that's covered by
Once
an
the
existing
contract's
one?
expired, then the mayor president's gonna have to have a conversation with the fire departments of those parishes to determine what that new contract will look like and whether or not the city of Lafayette Fire Department is gonna continue to provide those services as well. We know that there are 2 types of agreements that doesn't cost anything because it's agreements between us because we reciprocate the services. But when it comes to saying that whether or not the parish is going to continue to engage with the city in a contract for the city of Lafayette Fire Department to go out into the parish, that's a decision that's going to have to be made when those 2 councils
Yeah, that's what
separate.
I'm wondering, if both the councils are going to
So,
have to
so,
approve those
but
mutual
it's still
aid
gonna be
agreements.
separate books because, any funding that has to be given for the city of Lafayette stays in the city, and any funding for the parish stays in the parish, with the exception of the contracts that shows that you're gonna have an inspector and, communications officer, tied to that, and the records clerk. that the city and the parish are splitting the cost for the services that that person is providing for both.
Now, that's all done
agencies.
during the budget adoption, so that would be joint meetings anyway.
The funding is in the budget adoptions, but the contracts you're referring to, do all of them go to the council for approval?
Yeah. No, I don't.
The only
I'm asking
contract,
you.
what we started doing based on legal's advice is that the mayor president signs all contracts. So those contracts have to come to the parish. So it'll be the same thing. The contracts for the Lafayette Fire Department will still come to the city council for approval when those things expire. But if the volunteers decide that they need to engage in a contract, then that contract is going to be with the parish council and the
Because it would
parish.
come from parish general funds, their portion.
Well, that, the mutual aid,
That has nothing to do with the city or the parish. That's an agreement between two fire departments, even though it's signed by the mayor president, because the mayor president is signing on behalf of the Lafayette Fire Department to engage in that automatic aid or that mutual aid agreement with that parish fire department.
so that, that VFD, its board or somebody in their group would
correct.
approve the
correct.
contract and send it to you, and the mayor would approve it, and there's no money that changes hands, they just share services?
Right. Yeah. And that was something we made sure legal looked at to make sure that we weren't giving services away. Because it's not like we're responding and they're not responding back to us. So we're reciprocating that. When we need help, they come to us. When they need help, we go to them. In addition, above and beyond what the contract calls for the one truck that responds. That is an unusual situation that's going to have to be addressed, and it's off of the Breaux Bridge Highway. That area is in the parish, and that area is enjoying the services of the Lafayette Fire Department, which is a Class 2 fire rating, when they really should be enjoying a Class 6 fire rating because they're not in the city of Lafayette. And the reason why the Lafayette Fire Department won't send one truck to that location is because of the health issues and the issues of firefighting for us. It's a way of us protecting ourselves by responding with a full complement. Now, they are being billed as a Class 6 by the insurance companies, but they are enjoying the services of a Class 2 fire department. Those things may change when those two governments split, because my orders come from the city council.
Right.
And if the city council tells me you're no longer going into those areas, then that's some services that somebody else is going to have to pick up the slack. Because when you look at who should be responding to that particular area, it would be the Karen Grove Fire Department. But the Karen Grove Fire Department is too far, so any fire protection services outside of a 5-mile radius is like you have no fire protection at all. So we picked up that slack. Plus, it's a bad situation when you have another agency responding code red or emergency through a city going to an area when you got a fire station a half a block away. But those are issues that are going to have to be addressed when those governments split.
Mr. Stutes.
That is the question. Who is going to be deciding these things? It sounds like much of what we've talked about is the common services that the city of Lafayette, the city fire department provides to areas outside the parish. So if there has to be a contract signed by the mayor president on behalf of the parish, then it's going to have to include a review of it by the parish council. Isn't this precisely what will be required of the joint council, city and parish?
It's going to have to right-size the cost. In other words, if the parish decides that they want those services, then we would tell them, here's what it would cost for those services. And if the mayor president choose to engage in that, then we would follow the authority of the mayor by contract.
Here's a legal question, I guess. Is there an impediment to the fire department, which is really a city-parish government, consolidated government service, to somehow enter into cooperative endeavor agreements or intergovernmental agreements with the municipalities, with the unincorporated volunteer fire departments, and thereby creating a fire district that would be the entire parish? And by doing that, have the entire parish, the entire parish working as, in one effort to set the highest possible fire rating. Is there an impediment to doing that? And wouldn't that, if there isn't, why wouldn't that benefit all of the unincorporated areas, the parish, the cities, the municipalities? What would be the downside to entering into such a cooperative endeavor agreement or intergovernmental agreement?
That little word called politics.
And money. I don't think that there's the money in the parish side to fund those services. But fire,
We're talking about a consolidation of the city and the parish, so that doesn't exclude the city from some benefit from entering into that arrangement for the entire parish. I mean, we can't solve that question here, but that's the question I've got in my mind, is wouldn't that be true consolidation?
In the recent past, if you remember, the Lafayette City Parish Council established a special fire district and put to the voters in the unincorporated area of the parish the ability to approve that district and some taxing to pay for fire protection that would maintain their rating, if not improve their rating, and that failed.
Right.
And so
The keyword tax.
Yeah.
Keyword
Well,
tax. But
you
what
know,
I'm suggesting
to be able
is
to-
not a tax, by simply
let
entering into agreements with the municipalities.
Right.
And the fire departments, the volunteer fire departments.
What
You know,
we-
an intergovernmental agreement requires them to contribute something as well as, well, both parties have to contribute something. It's just a question,
Yeah.
a rhetorical question.
We currently have a similar structure. I mean, let me back up a minute just to make sure that we're all sort of on the same page. The Lafayette Fire Department is a city thing. It is not a city parish thing. The Lafayette Fire Department chooses to enter into an agreement with the parish of Lafayette to extend its services beyond its corporate limits. But that does not create it to be a consolidated